I've had my first technical slowdown in the Read What You Own challenge, but it's not that serious. Hello, welcome to my channel, another Bibliophile Reads. My name is Greg, and this is the 5th week of the Read What You Own challenge, year number 4. This challenge was created by the evil mastermind, Criminali. In the first year, it was just to read 100 books that you already own before buying another book. And like a fool, I joined in, and I have joined in every year since it's being done. This year, it's a little bit different. I'm going to be reading 25,000 pages of books that I already own before buying another book. I will link to my video so you can get the rules and regulations and the history of this challenge. I have other co-hosts for this challenge. There is Crystal at Fiber Artsy and MJ at Reading This Life. So what have I been reading this week? The first book I finished was Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. It is 215 pages long in many print editions. This is the 4th or 5th time I have read this book. I think it is I don't think. It is definitely one of my favorite Kurt Vonnegut novels. It's going head to head with Cat's Cradle. I can't really decide which book is better. So I'm just going to stick those two at the top of his 2 books. This was read for my Kurt Vonnegut book club. We read one Vonnegut novel in publication order about every quarter. Now, this is his most famous book. It is about an American GI named Billy Pilgrim, and he survived the battle, or I should say, the firebombing of Dresden by being in a bunker slaughterhouse. And it had quite an effect on Billy Pilgrim. It also had an effect on Kurt Vonnegut, because Kurt Vonnegut also survived the firebombing of Dresden. But what's curious about Slaughterhouse-Five, it is often listed as one of the top science fiction novels of all time. And in this story, Billy Pilgrim becomes unstuck in time. He is able to time travel to different parts of his past and future. He also is captured by aliens and is set up in a zoo on a distant planet. That sounds like a science fiction plot. However, Billy Pilgrim got enamored with the writings of Kilgore Trout. And in this book, Kilgore Trout is the best of the worst science fiction authors in the world. And Kilgore Trout had lots of great ideas. And it appears to me that Billy Pilgrim is just suffering from PTSD and is imagining that he's time traveling and going to alien worlds. Some science fiction fans will disagree with me, and they will say that, yes, that is really happening in this story. It is something people can talk about in Slaughterhouse-Five. But in any case, this is a magnificent look at humanity and the horrors of war. It can also be hilariously funny at times. One of my favorite books of all time. Seriously. The second book I finished was Succubi by Edward Lee, originally published in the early 90s. Edward Lee is a gory and gross science fiction author. He often gets a little sexy and naughty. He is extreme horror. Now, last week I reviewed a different extreme horror novella called No One Rides for Free by Judith Sonnet, and I basically lambasted that book for just being gross for the sake of being gross. And Edward Lee does a much better job. While I can't say that his characters are really stellar and deep, but he does have characters that you kind of learn to care about. There are 2 storylines in this one. In this, the main woman is a lawyer who learns that her father has had a major stroke. So she's going out back to a small town in Maryland to watch her father die. And she brings her husband and her 17-year-old daughter to the town. There is another storyline of two escaped inmates from an insane asylum. One of the men wants to talk to the lawyer. I forgot her name. And he's been trying to call her because he has information that he needs to give her desperately. But in order to escape, he has to get a real psychopath to help him. And the psychopath just loves murdering and raping and all sorts of mayhem. So you know it's not going to go well. And the stories merge very satisfactorily in the end. And this book had a good surprise ending. I was anticipating it going in one direction, but he pulled in a switcheroo that I was not expecting. And essentially, there is a cult that worships an ancient demoness. And the demoness is served by women, by succubi, who like to have sex with men. If you like extreme horror, this is a very good example of the genre. I also have a 2-month project with Alan at Big Horror Books and Classics, and quite a number of participants. We are reading Thomas Pynchon's novel, Against the Day, from December to January. And I am about 200 pages into it, and I'm really enjoying this book. I did listen to the audiobook when this novel first came out in 2006, but I've mostly forgotten the details. And the Thomas Pynchon just has a way of creating a world and a time with some really arcane knowledge that just gets thrown into the book. There's stories about dynamite. There's stories about tarot cards. And there's this airships, which are sort of like the Hindenburg. And it's fascinating. I've been reading about 20 pages a day while also listening to the audiobook simultaneously. And it's become a very soothing part of my day. I like to get it done pretty much early in the morning because it starts off the day right. I'm not sure where this plot is going, even though technically I have listened to it before. I don't remember, but I'm really enjoying it. And hopefully more people will comment on my Discord channel or my Voxer chat talking about this book. It's not too late to join in. You can catch up. It's a pretty good novel so far. I am also reading the collected fictions of Jorge Luis Borges at approximately 1 or maybe 2 stories a week. This week was The Approach to Al-Mutazim, only 6 pages long. It is essentially a story in the form kind of a book review. There is in the story a famous Islamic mystery novel called The Approach to Al-Mutazim about a Muslim man who gets caught up in a riot and he thinks he kills a man. Not positive. And he goes out seeking atonement, trying to find this, let's just say, Guru Al-Mutazim. And the story is fascinating, or the story of the novel is fascinating. I wish this novel existed in real life because it awakens how you approach the world. what you see the world as, and who are people really? What are you seeking in life? Maybe some people are seeking al-Mutazim, and what happens when they find it or don't find it. I'm getting into the section of these collected fictions where Borges is just hitting these stories out of the ballpark. Really loving them. I am also reading for Cthulhu Christmas, and I have read 2 short stories this week. The first was Dagon. This is one of Lovecraft's very early short stories. I love it a lot. It is only 6 pages long, and oddly enough, I have read this story every year that I've done Cthulhu Christmas. This is the 3rd time I've read it every year for the holidays. And it is essentially the story of a man going mad, or he says he's going mad. He talks about an incident during World War I, where a ship in the Pacific Ocean that he was on sunk. He was in a lifeboat. And then one day he woke up, and the ocean had disappeared. His boat was sitting on a huge mud flat. And as he's examining this mud flat, filled with dead and decaying fish, he comes across a temple. Let's just leave it at that. It's early Lovecraft, but still one of his best short stories. Along with that one, I read The Whippoorwills in the Hills by August Derleth. August Derleth was a young protege of H.P. Lovecraft. He's not quite the author Lovecraft was, but it was a pretty good short story. I don't remember the narrator's name, but the narrator inherits a remote house in New England from a cousin who has disappeared. The police have no real interest in tracking down his cousin, but he goes to this house. It does not have electricity, but it does have a party line telephone. Now, I'm not sure if everyone watching this video will know or remember what a party line phone is. That is a phone in remote areas where there's one phone line going to a number of houses, and everyone shares the same number. And your phone will have different rings for different houses. So you have a ring, that means it's the Joan. A ring is for the Smiths, or something like that. So this house has a party line. And the narrator has a bad habit of listening in on the party line. And he starts learning some information that maybe he's not supposed to know. His cousin in this house has lots of old books about black magic. And animals start disappearing nearby. And at the night, middle of the night, the narrator hears whippoorwills, many, many whippoorwills making their sounds. And it's slowly driving him mad. Or is it magic? Not the best short story in the world, but I'm glad that I read it. I'm glad to see how other people are interpreting the fiction of H.P. Lovecraft and creating a whole world in the Cthulhu mythos. Pick it up if you can. Okay, that is all I read this week. It comes to a total of 710 pages in length. Not a whole lot technically. However, I have been listening to an audiobook, which will be done on the Monday after this week ends. I am also reading a longish Norwegian crime novel, which I will finish on Tuesday or Wednesday. That will bring my total up next week to about 1,300 pages on Wednesday. So I'm really going to knock it out next week. But it brings my total up to 5,759 pages. Just have to check my notes, for a total of 23.4% of my challenge completed. Thank you for watching, and keep on reading.